It seems like no one on GoodReads knows what goes on in this story. Welcome back to Levity Books. My name is Liam and I hope you're reading well. This is a negative review, so I'm going to try to be quick with this, but there is a reason I'm doing this, so stick around to the end to find out why. So if you're involved in the book community online, you'll know that August is Women in Translation Month, or WIT Month. And what that means is readers are encouraged to find women authors who are being translated into English for the first time to promote their work, to ensure that there is wide accessibility to women authors that isn't constrained by language barriers. For instance, you'll see my recent video from Mizuki Tsujimura for The Lonely Castle in the Mirror. But in contrast to that, this review is a book that you should not read for Women in Translation Month, but it was intended to be a launch for it. Today we're talking about The Last and the First by Nina Berberova, which was first published in Russian in 1930, and it was being translated into English for the first time like last month. My interest in this work is the same as reading Marguerite Duras's debut work, which was translated for the first time into English earlier this year. You can really see how a woman author begins by the debut work. It really shows the deepest part of what they wanted to write. I think it's a great way of seeing how an author begins and then seeing their later work. So I was super interested because I'd never heard of Nina Berberova before. This is the very first English translation of Nina Berberova's debut novel, which was translated by Marianne Schwartz, who was responsible for many other translations of Nina Berberova's work into English. So I was really surprised that this just didn't work. The Last and the First is the story of three men from a Russian family farm trying to escape the Russian Revolution by emigrating to Paris. The reason I read this is because that plot sounded culturally quite important. It would show us what it was like to live in Russia during the revolution and trying to escape, and I thought it would just be a really new experience for me. It builds on my earlier reading this year of 20th century German literature to try and understand the mentality of German civilians during the World Wars. But frankly, I've never read a more confusing and broken translation before. It seems like no one on GoodReads knows what goes on in this story. And my primary motive for making this video is to ask Russian readers whether Nina Berberova's writing in Russian has been well received, or if it is enjoyable, because I want to figure out whether it's the translation that's holding back Nina Berberova or it's the story itself, that maybe her writing just generally wasn't compelling to me and the other GoodReads reviewers that have read it. Here's a crash course on the problems. The pronouns are never specific enough for us to know who is talking in a group conversation, and I read the recognitions by Gaddis, so I can normally keep a tab on who's talking. Second, there are too many characters and they're just indistinguishable. Third, very little is said about the Russian Revolution and there's not much detail into the motivations for why the characters wanted to emigrate. 4, the dramatic tension of the story is incoherent and resolved. It's not exactly clear why one of the characters, called Kellerman, what threat does Kellerman pose to the family? I was trying to figure it out, but I just couldn't see it. To reiterate the motivation for me to make this 1-star review, I think this is an inadequate translation, and I want to draw attention to that. Because it's one thing to promote women's writing by buying the same book everyone else on Instagram is buying, finding it was amazing because it truly is. And it's quite another thing to identify a women author that not many people have heard of, maybe because the translations of her writings are just inaccessible, or they're just not showing the true ability of her as a writer to a wider audience, and so she's just been not seen. And this book had surprisingly negative ratings on GoodReads. It's probably the lowest rated book I've seen on GoodReads that isn't like a joke book. There were no reliable reviews at the time that I decided to read this, and I thought that maybe this book was being pulled down by fake accounts on GoodReads because they didn't seem to be reading much. And so I thought perhaps this book was being punished by readers who just weren't giving it the fair treatment that it deserved. But I ended up confirming the consensus that there's something not right with this book. And so in short, I'm surprised this happened because Marianne Schwartz has won awards. Pushkin Press have an excellent collection of books. They're responsible for the revival of Stephen Zweig's writing, or Zweig, I'm not sure how to say it, but Pushkin Press seemed great. Marianne Schwartz seems great. So I have no idea what happened to this book. It just seems like a car crash that no one is talking about. So in conclusion, you might not know what to read for Women in Translation Month, but I'm just telling you, don't read this. And if you're Russian, please tell me if this is just me, or if this is the translation, or if this is the writer, because I thought I'd figure it out, but I'm still left with questions. Happy reading.